I would like to call this meeting to order. Will everyone stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Justice for all.
Good evening, Cheryl. Will you do the roll call? Take the roll call.
Present.
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 Present. Present.
Okay. With everyone in here.
In attendance.
In attendance, thank you very much. So I am going to change this up just a little bit. I'm going to ask for, when we approve the agenda, that when we approve it, we not only include the late materials which have been included. Has everyone seen the late materials? I want that included in the consent agenda. So I'd like approval for that, for it to be in the consent agenda. And then I would also like to move up the appointment, the voting for the new council member. So is there any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Are those opposed? Okay. So let's move then to, I'm going to do this first.
The consent agenda.
Actually, no, I'm going to do the appointment of the council member first.
Oh, okay. You're putting that.
Madam Mayor.
I am looking for a motion. Jared?
Madam Mayor, after much consideration, it's my pleasure, and I would entertain a motion to nominate Paula Kelly for City Council Ward 4.
Okay.
I would second that motion.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Couch to nominate Paula Kelly as the new council member, and it was seconded by Councilwoman Dunley. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor, I have a little discussion, if I may. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I just wanted to put it out to the community what a great process this has been, especially with the 4 people that identified themselves as wanting to serve the community at a higher capacity. And it was my pleasure of having coffee with every one of those applicants, and how many people really, truly love Sedro-Woolley and want to see it move in a way that's beneficial to all. Everyone had talked about how they love Sedro-Woolley and are very concerned and want to put their efforts and sweat equity behind what happens in Sedro-Woolley. It, of course, was a difficult choice for the folks that we had to interview, and I just wanted to say thank you to the candidates, and thank you to the community for supporting those candidates, and thank you to the City Council and the Mayor and the staff for facilitating such a great process. And thank you to the candidates specifically for making it such an incredibly tough decision. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor? All in favor of...
Should we actually have both names into...
Is there another nomination?
I'll nominate Stacy Peno.
Okay. Is there a second? There is not a second. So the vote then will be for Paula. All those in favor of bringing Paula onto the City Council?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. It carries. Congratulations. So would you like to come forward, please? So repeat after me. I, Paula Kelly, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office of council member for the city of Sedro-Woolley, Skagit County, Washington, according to the law, to the best of my ability and understanding. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'd like you to join us up here, if you would, please. Great. And I do want to reiterate that it was a very, very difficult situation, as discussion that we had. There were so many qualities that were profound, and making this decision was challenging. So we do appreciate the candidates who did come forward. Stacy, thank you so much. You, very impressive, very impressive. Yes. As I said before, it takes a lot of courage. So thank you for doing that. Okay. So we will move on. I am looking for a motion to accept the agenda, the consent agenda, and of course this will include the late materials from Nathan Salsina regarding additional work, additional cost for the work done in the police department.
I move to approve the consent agenda, including late materials.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, so I have a motion to accept the consent agenda with the late materials included in that. That came from Councilman Couch, and it was seconded by Councilwoman Cornegay. Any discussion?
I do have a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Number 6, I believe the question would be for Mark. Just wanting to know a little more information. Is this getting the ball rolling for us to have an adequate facility for our solid waste employees to have somewhere to park equipment, work on equipment? What kind of timeline will we be looking at?
Yes, that's exactly the intent of this. This is basically a facility plan. We've got a lot of pieces to move around down there to make this work, but we have property available to the east of the existing street shop that we're looking to locate a combined solid waste, fleet maintenance, and public works operations department together in that. And so it's a fairly good-sized building that would go there, that would have bays that would be adequate to have the mechanic work indoors on the larger equipment where he currently has to work out in the rain and snow lately. And then also would allow us to park our larger pieces of specifically the solid waste equipment indoors. Especially recently with the extended cold weather, it's taken actually close to an hour to get the equipment running most mornings, which certainly affects our productivity, and it's not good for the electronics in that equipment either. So yeah, we've identified this as a priority. We haven't identified a funding source yet, but this is the first step for us, is to make sure we have a good place to build it and a plan to do that. This won't develop detailed architectural plans, but it will get us to where we can move forward with funding search and come to you and present a good program for you to look at and help us with how we fund this. And timing-wise, you did mention that. This process we're looking at taking about 6 months to do this, and then after that we'll start the process of attempting to fund that in the not-too-distant future.
Mark, I really appreciate the information, and I just want to, echo this to the council. When I took office, I went around and met with the bulk of the departments, and there's no other way to put it. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have maintenance being done on a $500,000 solid waste truck with the mechanic laying on a piece of cardboard out in the rain, out in the cold, bundled up like the Michelin Man to stay warm. It's not the way the city should be conducting business. And this is a project that is of the utmost importance to me. I think it's an important piece of our community. We have all of this expensive equipment that shouldn't be sitting out in the weather, because I'm sure that's not conducive to a long lifespan. We're spending a lot of the public money on this equipment. We need to be good stewards of the funds. And this is a project that I'm not, for one, willing to slide to the back burner. So I want this to stay current, and I want us to find the money to do it, because it's ridiculous that we're using the old, what I think was originally a county maintenance shop. I'm not even going to take a guess of when it was built, but it's ridiculous that we're still working in this condition. So thank you, Mark, for getting this done and getting the ball rolling.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any other discussion or questions?
I had a question about number 8, the senior center painting project. I was curious, that's interior?
No, it's a combination. I think we're doing the kitchen as part of a bigger project this summer, and then it's portions of the exterior. It's not the whole building doesn't need it, but it's touching up some of the trim and some of the areas where the Rotary did their work to keep that up.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I think it was about $6,000 contract.
That sounds familiar, but I can't find it right now. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda with the late materials, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Let's see here. So let's move on to staff reports. So, good evening, Jason.
Yes, apologies for being late. We were on a really goofy, weird call. A couple things going on. We've got, as you indicated, the flooring project in the squad room area. It's almost done, fortunately. And then the countertop work that Nathan's going to be working on, hopefully be done towards the end of next week. So we can get things moved back in there and start operating normally again. Friday, there was a threat made verbally towards the high school, where a student had made a threat to shoot up the high school. I understand in this day and age how people still say those things, but they do. We were able to establish probable cause to arrest this young man. He's currently in juvenile detention. We executed a search warrant on the residence that he had and recovered several guns, and then charges are pending on him. So we're working with the school district there to make sure that they're comfortable and know that we're around and whatnot. Tomorrow night we're doing our first active threat training. It's kind of it's just the start to see how our pilot program. Right now we have about 70 people signed up that have actually signed up for it. We anticipate we'll have some stragglers, people that didn't sign up that will want to attend. What we'll be discussing is how to prepare for such an event for the general public, and what to expect from first responders when we get there, and how to respond to us when we show up. We're hoping that this is successful, and we can offer this again to more people. Also, we're talking with the superintendent at the schools to set up a teacher-only training for them, for the entire district on what they can anticipate. So that's tomorrow night here in this room from 6 to 8, and hopefully things go well there. Other than that, I've got nothing else to add.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Klinger?
One of the things also on that the floors, and I was kidding Jason as they did it, that's also, they're doing the fire department too, and so the increase, they did a really nice job on the training room, which you'll see at your next workshop. It's rather noisy in there now though, so there's no more carpet, so it echoes a little bit, but they've done a really, really nice job on the floors in there. Also, did you tell them, not that I wasn't paying attention to you, where Lynn's at tonight?
I did not.
Lynn's at the, along with Assistant Chief Wagner, he's there at Evergreen Elementary School doing a reunification drill and the lectures on for the school district folks and the families and people that have kids in schools, and they'll be doing this at the other schools too, as far as the reunification process of once we go into the schools, what happens and how you get the parents back to the kids. Okay. So that's going on, and they'll be doing that at the other schools also. And I do believe they're taping it, so you should be able to pull it up and watch it through the school district. So
this is with regards to active shooter?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Other than that, calls are up. We seem to be, I noticed that Councilman Owen broke his tablet tonight, so so we broke 2 earlier this week, so it's been happening a lot. I don't know why. I don't know if they're getting slippery fingers out there, but you'll see Bill was able to find some fairly inexpensive tablets for us. We found out that our operating system only works on the program we use for doing the transports only works on one operating system, and it's of course not the cheap one. It's not the Android. It has to have a Microsoft system, but he was able to find one for under $200, which I was really impressed. So we now all of our people are actually back putting the data into the computers instead of a scratch paper, so it's much helpful for us. So, but that's it.
And I want to say thank you to you for stepping up and agreeing to be our advocate on the advisory board for, I think it's the interlock agreement with Skagit County Emergency Management.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Yeah. John?
Well, the Planning Commission has finished up their work on the 2017 Comprehensive Plan update cycle, so I sent that information to the Department of Commerce with the state for their 60-day review, and then I'll be bringing it to the council in late April for council's possible action on that. In the meantime, the Planning Commission, starting in March, the next Planning Commission meeting will start the 2018 docket cycle, which should be a lot shorter since it's just a couple of rezones instead of, there's not as many items on the docket as there were in 2017. They're also going to be working on new regulations for planned residential developments, which affects how subdivisions can be created and how they'll look, standards for subdivisions, giving an alternate possibilities for how the land is actually subdivided and how it looks. Aside from that, you probably noticed, and it was already brought up in our earlier meeting, that the downtown 48 apartment building is completed and people are moving in, so hopefully we'll have more housing available for people. And we've had a spike in single-family residential applications in the past couple of weeks, which is a little odd in February since the ground is frozen and it's snowing. It's just hard to work this time of year, but we've had a spike in those applications, as well as the 28-unit apartment buildings are also under construction now too. They seem to be going slow. I think that's weather-related as well. So plenty going on.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, that comprehensive plan John's talking about coming to you, you've seen Chapter 3, the transportation element, and we're busily trying to get ahead of that curve on that, and so we have a number of projects coming this summer. We've been talking about Fruitdale is out to bid. That closes on March the 8th, and we're looking forward to getting that going probably late May, finishing that by October. We're also in design, met with the consultants today on our sidewalk project from Township to Fruitdale on the north side of Highway 20. That'll be out to bid hopefully in April. David Lee and Wally are working on our sidewalk and ADA ramp project. That's in various locations around town, including Sedro-Woolley High School, and also the State Street Overlay Project, which in places overlays State Street between Highway 20 and 4th, including removing and fixing the area that we've been struggling so long with at the BNSF crossing there. So in addition to those things, we are also going to bring to you at the next council meeting the consultant agreement with Reichart and Eby Engineering of Linden. It's the firm we selected to move forward with the scoping study on the Jones-John Liner Trail Corridor project. We're excited to get started on that, and in fact, there's some things that are moving quickly on that. Mayor and Aaron have been at legislature, and we're looking at a path to funding part of that work from a legislative grant, specifically the BNSF undercrossing. We're also going to be bringing to you in the not-too-distant future an agreement with BNSF for them to do the design work for that undercrossing. Be a relatively low-cost design with them to do that, but it makes them a part of our team, and they've also committed that they can build that thing in a couple of days, doing the prep work like pile driving in between their normal train operations, which is going to be huge for us, both from cost and moving that project forward, because that's the linchpin to the whole corridor, getting that undercrossing in. So I'll be reporting on that as that develops. And this corridor study is a key part of that. We want to get some preliminary elevations and views of how that's going to look through there for the railroad to work with when they do their planning. The Jones Road Sewer Project that's being done by a private developer for the Jones Estates development has, as you know, had its troubles due to depth and water and things. The sewer itself is finished now. The road has been gravelled, and they've been maintaining it okay up till now. We don't have a schedule from them on when they're going to pave it, but of course the weather's not been suitable yet anyway. But that will be happening in the spring as well, and finishing that up. We understand they're going to move right to putting the utilities in the Jones Estate development after that, which I think John could report to you that we're rapidly running out of inventory for lots in town, so that's actually a good thing. The other thing we've been working on, and we're going to be bringing projects to you probably in the next couple of months for your consideration, is the study we've been doing at the wastewater treatment plant for the age and the condition of those structures. That's just about finished. We did a hydraulic study, which was the last necessary element of that. That we should have the results by the end of the month, and then we'll look at the actual short-term projects that's going to no doubt identify for us, as well as keying when we're going to be looking at some long-term expansion plans for that particular facility. So just wanted to let you know about that, and in fact that's been really highlighted to us at the plant recently. We've had these heavy rainfalls not too far apart, with the saturation of the ground due to the ongoing inclement weather we've had this winter. We've had two very close calls down there for overflows on our facility. That we have a kind of a design flaw from the original building of that plant in '98 that hasn't caused us a huge problem until recently, but with all this rain coming in as quickly as it does, it makes it a real challenge for the staff to keep the water flowing through there without spilling out to some of the boxes. And that's going to be a project we're going to be doing probably sooner rather than later, and later this summer is what we're thinking on that. So that's what's happening on our end.
Really busy, extremely busy. Yeah, lots going on. And then I believe you shared, was it at the last council meeting, or maybe it was a meeting I sat in on, there's going to be a lot of road closures or delays due to overlay? And
yes, indeed. In fact, on March the 20th, we're jointly with DOT scheduling a public meeting to go through the projects both that DOT is doing in the city as well as the ones that I just discussed. We also have some sewer work that we're looking at as well, which council's going to see in the not-too-distant future. That's going to make it challenging around town this summer, especially the overlays DOT is doing. Now, they're going to do their work at night, I believe, believe I mentioned that already, but they're going to be doing their overlay on Highway 20 from where they stopped last year near Ferry Street all the way across to the east city limits, and then also on Highway 9 all the way to Park Cottage Place on that, which has been very needed for many years. They're also going to be doing a BST, which is a chip seal, I understand, on South Highway 9, although we haven't seen any actual plans for that yet. So DOT is going to come and talk about how their scheduling is going to work, what's going to be done in day. They will have some preparatory work done in day, mainly replacing wheelchair ramps and those kind of things, and then talking about the night work. And of course, we'll talk about how we're going to inconvenience people during the day. So we'll have them covered just like last year. Same thing on the sidewalk project we did in the day, and they did their paving at night. But the traffic moved pretty well, and we fully intend to make sure that happens this year as well. So March 20th, and I'll have a flyer for the council once we have that finalized. And I think I didn't bring it tonight, but Dean reminded me, we prepared at his request an overall map of the city which shows all those projects on that. So I'll put it in your council packet next week, and you'll see that in larger form at the meeting if you come to that. We're planning also to invite the folks from Fruitdale area down to talk specifically about that project. I thought about having a separate meeting, but as I sat here tonight, I thought, as busy it is, it'd probably be best to just combine those efforts and invite those folks to come down during that. So that's also planned. Speaking of public information, we try to be pretty upfront with the public about what we're doing. We see the things here in council with the transportation improvement program and the comprehensive plan. But we are going to schedule at least one public meeting regarding the Jones John Liner Trail Corridor project. That's got a lot of neighborhood impacts that we want folks to be aware of well in advance of when those projects actually start hitting. So I'm thinking that's about a 6-month process for Reichart and Eby to do that scoping study, and so perhaps this fall we'll do something like that on that project as well.
All right. Thank you. Lots and lots of information. Thank you, Mark. I know you're terribly busy. Aaron.
A couple items tonight. On the Swift Center front, the port is still working diligently towards a July 1st, 2018 transfer date. I believe they'll have further discussion at their March board meeting about whether they're going to go ahead and stick with that date, but all indications are that that's the date they're working towards. So if that happens, then on July 1 of this year, the port would own the 225 acres that's currently owned by DES, which does orphan about a 4/10 of an acre cemetery facility that doesn't touch that core campus. DES doesn't really want to own a cemetery. It turns out that's not part of their core mission. The port will not own a cemetery, definitely not part of their core mission. So I've represented to the working group that the city would be potentially willing to take the cemetery on, provided that it comes with some level of funding and the ability to return the cemetery back to the state if at some point in the future the funding doesn't follow the cemetery. Of course, we are in the cemetery business and have been so for many years, and our cemetery's got quite a history of other cemeteries coming together. But one thing I've learned is cemeteries cost more money than they generate, and they come with a perpetual obligation. So I want to be really mindful of what that means and ensuring that the city can address that in the future if necessary. On the flip side, this cemetery is very much an orphan. It's been up there. It's had just a little bit of care and feeding over the years. And there are how many people interred there, Brenda?
About 1,500.
Yes, there's about 1,500 souls that were buried in the cemetery, and there's a whole complex history of how and where they're buried and what may have happened over the years. So there's some interesting work that could be done to preserve and tell that story, and it may be that the city has a role in that. So I guess I'm looking to you to make sure that you're comfortable with the direction I'm representing that the city may be willing to move towards, which is making that a city-owned facility subject to funding and the ability to return the facility if there is no funding in the future. Are there any big concerns about that direction?
Aaron, I have a question. Is that something that might fall under the historic preservation aspects of our state?
Well, DAP, the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, has some rules about cemeteries, and I don't recall if that was an element of the historic preservation designation that Mary worked on or not. But there are some rules. I'm not sure that they're unique to that cemetery. Our cemetery is older than that cemetery. So I guess I'm not exactly sure how that intersection might work. Also,
Aaron, this is outside of the city limits, correct?
It is.
Yes.
And it's the access off Helmick, is that
Exactly
correct?
right. Yeah.
I think I've driven by there.
Probably more than once.
Be working again up there in April.
So an interesting tidbit, factoid, is our cemetery is in our city limits, but it's not contiguous to our city limits because when GMA was first adopted, cities were able to identify properties that were owned by the city. So, for example, that's why the city of Anacortes has city limits at Riverbend and Mount Vernon and can use their police power to regulate what happens at their water facility. That's why there's cell phone towers and those sorts of things there. That's in their city limits, even though it's not contiguous. Same thing with our cemetery. So also on the Swift Center front, one of the big issues that was outstanding was the emergency access road. I think you all know there's currently one way on, one way off. The emergency access road had been damaged many years ago. DES thought they had it in the capital budget. The big $4 billion budget got approved. Didn't seem to be there. So the good news is it is in both versions of the current supplemental capital budget. So the House and Senate both have the funds in their current drafts necessary to complete that project. So we're optimistic that that will make it through and get built this summer. Lastly, on the Swift Center, the Port will be holding a meeting here on March 28th for your regular meeting as part of their Environmental Protection Agency, their EPA grant funding for public outreach, and they also will be on your agenda that night to give you a Swift Center update.
What's the date on that again?
March 28th.
Okay, thank you.
So on the library front, this has been a very busy time since we last met. The library is now being jointly operated. The district is running the library at the Ball Street location. The downtown location has closed for public use. In that very short window of time, the basement's been cleaned out at the Ball Street Library. Any of the books that were down there that were the Friends of the Library have now been sent over to 100 West State Street, the future home of the library. So they're being sold there on weekends by the Friends of the Library. So all those books, plus a couple thousand that the district had, are already weeded out of their collection. And if you get a chance, go take a tour. The library is laid out differently. The circulation desk that was once there is gone. Circulation's now by the door. The meeting room that was sort of meeting/storage is now a reading room. The library director's office is now a meeting room. And there's more books there today than there were when we started, and there's still more books to come to that location. So it seems like it's going all right. The historical collection that you all heard so much about over the past couple of years is currently in my office. That collection, which is I think 503 books, is waiting to have the Fancy Dan placards on it to say it's special, and then will be made available again as reference material to the public. So see that. Another big change over there is all of the audio-visual materials are now out on stacks. So you don't have to look at a list. You can just go browse through those things, check them out if you want. So I'm looking at the council, and when last we discussed this, I think Jermaine was here. So I would say this has been discussed before, and that is true, but not by most of you, and that is the tourism promotion area. So years ago, this proposal was born, and our city council discussed it and voted to proceed to have me work on drafting language with our partners, and that was three mayors, so it was Mayor Anderson, person, however many mayors ago, and I think 6 of 7 council members ago on the. So the big picture on this is there's a state law that allows the hotel operators, our hoteliers, to get together and say, hey, we would like you and the government to impose a bed fee, tax, whatever you want to call it, on people who stay in our hotel, $2 a night. Those dollars then would be collected by you, so they're mandatory collection, and they would be spent according to a plan to promote the area. So we define a geographic area, we establish a rate, we decide who's going to pay it, hotels with more than 40 rooms, and then let's go promote the community. So our city has been, I think, supportive, but we haven't been super actively engaged. We jumped in a few weeks ago when it seemed like things were moving again, but not really moving, and helped precipitate a meeting where things definitely didn't start moving again. So I guess I'm just keeping you on board. Where we are at the moment is the city of Burlington, which now commands or will soon command somewhere around 50% of all of the rooms that would pay this TPA rate, would like to have a different process to get from where we are today to a finish line. The substance of what they've asked for, I believe the partners have all nodded their heads and said we can live with the substance, but they're not quite ready to achieve the substance without a different process. So there's still some work to be done. Burlington will be hosting a meeting in the next month or so, and the key stakeholders are really the hoteliers who have to sign petitions to make this possible, and then if you want it to be countywide, you need the 8 local governments, the 4 cities, 4 towns, and the county, although I think there's only 1 town that actually has a hotel that would pay this. So it's a pretty small group that needs to actually agree, and then these agreements would have to be approved by all the city councils and the county commission to actually implement this work. Seems like the math is, what, about $500,000 a year is the current estimate of revenue that has not been collected to promote Skagit Valley. So that's out there. Look for it. I'm optimistic you might see it yet this spring for implementation sometime in 2018. Let's see, on the, I'm sorry, I missed something on the library, which is the next step in our process library-wise. The next issue you'll see will be the design contract, the design phase work. So we are under our interlocal agreements. The library director and I are jointly responsible for managing the design phase work, and we are currently negotiating with SHKS on the contract and scope of work for the full schematic design of this project. So I'm hoping to bring to you, possibly by the end of March, their actual contract for approval, and we'll walk through process at that point as well. We know at this point that we would be managing the design contract with a fairly small group. That would be the mayor, Mary Alice from the library board, Jean and I, and that the full city council and library board would participate in 2 joint work sessions, and we certainly will be checking in with you at other key phases. But under the interlocal agreements, this process is really intended to take all of that public participation in the pre-design phase and translate that into something that can be built. And so that's what we're currently working on that front. And then the last item I have is, are you all going to be here on both March 7th and 14th? I'm trying to schedule a photographer to get an updated photo for out in the lobby now that we have a full council and mayor. And normally we would do that just before a meeting, probably an hour before the meeting, get the group picture taken. So will everybody be here for the next 2 meetings? All right, well, I'll see what I can get scheduled, and I'll let you know.
Thank you, Aaron.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question?
Oh, yes.
Hey, Aaron, I got a question about the bed fee. Now, is that just for the hotels, or if I were to sign up with Airbnb and rent out the Stump House or the Magic Mushroom Cabin, would they also be paying into that?
No, it's hotels with more than 40 rooms. There is, interestingly, a bill that just passed through the Senate yesterday, but my understanding from talking to our senator is that it's a King County-centric bill, but that one would extend this similar concept to everybody, which my view is actually far more equitable, that you'd pick up all those B&Bs and little boutique hotels and Laconers and Anacorteses, but this one only gets the big ones. Oh, what that does remind me, there was one more library item, which is on the capital budget front. We are currently in the Senate capital budget at the $1.5 million level, and in the House at the $350,000 level. So we were in Olympia last Thursday to testify before the House Appropriations Committee on their capital budget, and we asked that they look at it the way the Senate's looking at it. And so we'll see what happens as it works through the process. But we're in both budgets. We like Senator Wagoner's number a little bit more than the House number, but we're super appreciative to be in both. The local, and this is interesting, the supplemental year is very, very small, and the local appropriations, it's only about $24 million. So the Sedro-Woolley Library is the largest local project in the Senate budget. So that tells you something. Quite a lot of work done there to help support this project for our community.
All right, thank you. Patsy?
In addition to working on various annual reports that the city must submit, we've been working with the fire department in the GEMT record keeping and the cost reports with a consultant. And tomorrow we're having our first status meeting to see how we're doing in this project. We do have to have all of the cost report information into the state of Washington by March 31st. And this will allow the city to receive additional reimbursement for Medicaid transports. And not only will there be retroactive back to June 1st, 2016, but these numbers also will determine future rates. So it's kind of like they review the prior year, and that becomes 2 years away's base rate, and then there's always this true-up. So there's a lot of record keeping, but some of the initial information, such as square footage and those sorts of things, won't change very much. But number of transports continues to rise, and the state didn't realize, the people in charge of the program, that there are 0 fire departments, 0 cities on the state fiscal year, that we're all calendar years. But the rules are according to the state fiscal year, so we have to take half of one year and add it to half of another year, and it's, just a little more interesting. Mm-hmm. So, also, speaking of the library, in the last 2 weeks, several file cabinets worth of documents have magically appeared in the finance department for us to sort through and determine archival value. So we'll be working on that. It appears that there's a lot of duplicates from what we have in the finance department as well. But it is our goal to take all of the old library board minutes and get them scanned and on the city's website. But that won't happen right away, but that is part of our plan.
Thank you, Patsy. Judith?
I don't have anything personal, but I did have a question for Mark about with the John Liner Trail Road thing looking more active. What's going to happen with that other route that had the blind bridge and everything? And I ask because it's a lovely walkway.
Well, we're planning to close the road itself. And in fact, we've talked to the railroad. They're actually interested in keeping whatever soils excavated out of the new crossing on the road right away, they consider it hazardous waste. Just the nature of what railroads have done over the last 100 years, generally speaking, they don't want it to go off of their property. So we're looking at putting a box culvert in to close in the creek crossing there and filling it up and taking the trestle itself out. That's an old wood structure that's kind of a maintenance issue for them anyway, although they do that all the time. But that's the thought on that, is closing it. And we will have a pedestrian route on the new road, which will be straight through, and actually there'll be a shared use path on that route there. So I don't know that it'll hurt too much. If you live on SAP,
You're on your knees to go on those nice soft roads than a sidewalk.
Yeah. So that's the plan right now. That could change.
Okay, thank you. Jermaine?
I just wanted to talk about last 2 weeks we went to visit, me and my daughter went to visit Senator Wagoner, and we talked about the library, and it's not just to visit him in his office and talk about housing and how these housing bills are coming along. And he's looking pretty comfortable, but he's pointing out the troublemakers, and I happen to know a lot of them that give him a hard time and everything, and that was a lot of fun. So we had a lot of fun with him that day. Just wanted to mention that. And also, I was asked by Shane Collins, who runs the Boys and Girls Club here, that the council gets invited to, they're having a breakfast on March 14th, 7:30 in the morning. And I just happened to look at the website. It's at 7:30 on March 14th at McIntyre Hall. And that you do need to RSVP to Heather, and her number is 419-3723, extension number 8. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Brenda?
I have nothing tonight.
Nothing? Paula?
First of all, I want to say thank you. Really appreciate the support. And especially I wanted to thank my former opponent for being the one who nominated me, so thank you, Jared. Second of all, I thought maybe I could clarify a little bit on the TPA thing. The hoteliers have voted at this time a year ago to enter into this petition to the legislature, but it also requires the city council's approval. We have been working on it for about 10 years, and so there's a lot of people who have put a lot of time and effort into it already. The fee, I know you asked about that. It is based on a 40-bed or 40-unit hotels because it's felt like it would impose too great of a burden on smaller places. So 40 rooms was the point at which they decided this was a fair place to start from. They had over 60% of the hoteliers who had signed on. In fact, it was 80%, including our very own Three Rivers Inn a year ago, and it only required 60% of the hoteliers in the county to do so. So just a little clarification on that for you. And that's all I have.
Did you want to mention Woodfest?
Woodfest is coming up, yes. Thank you. We are starting that, we've been working on it. It's April 14th and 15th. The big change there is that we've moved it from the first weekend of April, and we believe it will be more beneficial to all concerned to do so. The school district has always had a bit of an issue with getting kids to participate when it was based around spring break. And so by moving it to the middle of the month, we hope to get more participants. And we've also subtitled it Timber to Tech this year. and that's to reflect not only where we've come from, but where we intend to go in the future. And so one of the things that the school district will be doing is they will have about a quarter of a wall space in the gym devoted to the other CTE classes that take place at the high school, and that are everything from culinary arts to metal shop to things like geometry and construction. And that geometry and construction will also be a program that goes into Habitat for Humanity projects this fall, building 4 houses on Beatty Road. So,
thank you. Chet? Okay. Carl?
Yes. A fine service club, the Seroptimus, this Friday at the Walnut Tree is from noon to 5. Anything you buy from there is going to be helping out WIC, or Women, Infants, and Children program, and they are seeking donations of diapers and wipes, and I would also suggest a little check can go pretty far for that program. So please support that effort at the Walnut Tree this Friday. Additionally, our U.S. Representative Rick Larson will be holding a cup of coffee at the Woolley Market this Saturday from 10 to 11:30. So he'd like to hear from you. Of course, here on the City Council, we would like you to reinforce that, any federal grants to help with our infrastructure would be nice. Also, Mark, thank you so much for the plow routes during the snow. I saw them out. They were industrious. They were out at O'Dark 100 when the snow was falling. Thank you for making multiple passes, and I know it was appreciated in my neighborhood and ward. I just have to reiterate how that is a benefit to our area, especially now that we're looking to do more of the north-south secondary roads to get people connected. So thanks for that. Additionally, for your project list, and I did notify Nathan of this a couple weeks ago, a car missed making a turn onto 11th from State. So there's a stop sign there that is bent over and is missing its green signs indicating that it's 11th and State. I guess the person who hit it with their car got out of their car and tried to straighten it and right it, but they were not successful. I understand from Nathan that once the ground softens up, you'll be out there to give it a repair, but the neighbors are eager to see that happen. I do have some input from some neighbors that are concerned about the railroad crossings on State and Ferry just west of Eastern. I'm sure you've heard about it over the years. I know there will be some upcoming changes here, especially near State Street, but is it possible to request those concrete inserts that they're able to put in there to smooth out that process? Is there something that we need to do to take care of that slope as people approach? I'm sure you have some input on that.
Yes, in fact, some good news on that. It possibly could still fall apart, but right now we're planning to remove the tracks completely at State Street. They'll just go away. It's looking like the railroad is amenable to us removing the one at Ferry as well. And if we do that, we're going to hop in there and get those out before they change their mind. And if this does transpire, we're going to try to put together some funds and go ahead and lower that crossing yet this year while we're doing other things. Might have to wait for another year, but that's the plan. That's something I've been trying to arrange for a number of years, but that would be a wonderful change on Ferry Street in particular.
It would, and you have our full support. And then finally, Madam Mayor, as part of full disclosure, I have accepted the invitation to accept a board membership position with Helping Hands Food Bank with Sedro-Woolley.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jerry?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple quick things. Sergeant Harris, if you can pass on to your officers and Chief Tucker, I know the community appreciates the increased police presence around the schools due to recent events. I know that with a department that's staffed minimally. Those extra things take time and resources. The community appreciates that. And hopefully, someday we have a full-time school resource officer. Would be an outstanding thing if we can get the school district to meet us in the middle or somewhere and find common ground on that. I just want to say the PUD work on Highway 9, they've been doing a good job of keeping traffic flowing. The owl house is still in my front yard, but that seems to be, it's not of high use. So I'm glad they have facilities on site, but neighbors are pretty happy with the traffic moving through there. And I just want to say I've been watching and following Senator Wagner down in Olympia, and I just want to say he is doing some outstanding things for our state and our city. It's amazing to have him advocating for us down there in Olympia, and I just hope that we can keep him down there for a while. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. So I, too, want to say thank you to actually Nathan and his team for keeping the streets clean and or clear of the snow last Saturday. That was so unexpected, and I think for any of you who got out and ventured into other cities, you realize that we got the brunt of it and everybody else got a dusting, and that was pretty crazy. But our street team did a great job. Nathan and his team did a great job, and I want to say thank you to them. And speaking of Nathan, he is wanting me to promote the Sidewalk Replacement Program. And the Sidewalk Replacement Program is a situation where we're encouraging our citizens to repair or replace their sidewalks. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you're actually held accountable. If somebody falls, you're the one who's held accountable for that. So we want to become a city that's known for its ability to walk, pleasant walks. I see people in my neighborhood all the time that are walking, and it would be nice if sidewalks were smooth so nobody would trip, and especially for children as well. But this will be coming out in your April 1st billing, so be watching for it, and it will tell you exactly how to go about what the process is, what our responsibility is, and what your responsibility is. So keep that in mind. I also want to make mention of a program that I am a part of. It's called Construction. Maybe you saw it in the paper last year. That was the first time that it was actually active here in Skagit County. It's where teams go in. Last year it was 5 teams. This year will be 5 teams again. And out of cans, they build different kinds of, they construct different kinds of images. So last year there was a bank vault, a flag, an iPhone. Gosh, I can't remember what the other 2 were. The team that I am on, we are called Canned Response, and we are building a emergency vehicle. And I hope that's what it looks like when we get done with it. But we would invite you to come out. It's this Saturday. It starts at 9 o'clock. Those cans, or those constructions will be up for about a week, and then they will be donated to the food bank. So all those cans that, and I think we have something like 2,500 that we're using to put together a construction, will be donated to the food bank. So any kind of support that you have there would be great. I also wanted to mention that Congressman Larson is coming to town Saturday, 10 a.m. at the Woolley Market, and please spread the word. I would love it if we could get several people who could show up, and as Carl was saying, really tout what needs to happen here. Really thank him for what he has done, and then, let him know what kind of support he can provide for us here in Sedro-Woolley. And I think that is about it. All right. So we will move on. Those were quite the reports, weren't they? So I will now, at 7:59, open up the floor for public comments. I want to remind you that when you come up, please state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. So is there anyone who would like to come up and give public comment?
Good evening, Mayor Johnson. and all of the city council and you folks here who are here tonight. I'm going to be briefing. My name is Thelma Watson Trujillo. I live at 939 Wicker Road in Sedro-Woolley, Washington.
Thank you.
And I'm happy and proud to say I was born in this beautiful state. Let me see here. Here we go. I'm going to be reading this because then I'll stay on track and it'll take less time. I have been grieving the latest school shooting, as I believe that most Americans are. Decades have passed, but we grieve again and again and again. Only now is anyone really standing up to be heard and to demand change and protection for our schools, our students, and the teachers who are in danger for their lives. It is the students themselves who are organizing and moving forward and planning a national day to demand change and for action and for solution. I am ashamed to be a sheeple. I have not stood up. Not like one of these young people, these courageous, bright, and proactive students. We need to stand up and support them in any way we can. I'm happy to hear from a police officer tonight that there's some proactive things happening in our beautiful town. I'm a great-grandmother. My friends and I are the elders. If we don't care, who will? We plan to march for our kids on their day to show that we care. March 24th is the national day they have chosen. What can each one do? What can our state do? What can our city do? What can we expect our government to do? Let's not just talk about being strong and healing as a nation. That's wonderful. But let's brainstorm for solutions to this shameful problem. Our kids should not be afraid to go to school to learn to become great Americans. What is more worthy of funding than their safety? They are our most valuable asset and resource. They are our tomorrow. They are our beloved children. They are our America. So far, we're very new in planning for this demonstration and support for the kids. There's a few of us. We will be tentatively planning to meet at the clock tower and doing a march through town and meeting and marching around the high school. We will be discussing it with the school curriculum pretty soon with the principal, and we'll arrange a meeting. But we'd love your ideas, your support. The more who come, the better. You know, this is a way that we can build confidence and proactive thinking in our young people, and we do need to protect them. I'm just amazed that we can't even call on our National Guard. You know, they're here to protect America at home, in the homeland. And where are they? You know, it just seems to me that maybe, just maybe, if we had a National Guard man or woman present, even on an alternate basis, you know, most people who are committing an act because of spiritual or mental illness are cowards. You know, not putting down people who are mentally ill, but, you know, it's a cowardice thing. And if that kind of presence was available in our schools, you know, I just can't imagine the effect of one of our wonderfully uniformed people carrying an assault rifle would deter some of that, you know, when we have these things going on. And I thank you, and I just hope that some of you will help us plan a bigger, better standing to support our kids. We're just starting, and we don't have a lot of time. The 24th of March is the day the national march will take place. So I thank you and hope that, you know, there'll be some things forthcoming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wagner's for 10 Telcott Street. And first, I was thanking Paul about the Seropolis. I just want to add a little bit more about Seropolis. And I think the majority of people here already know what Seropolis is all about. And this Friday, our shop will be open from 12 to 5. And all proceeds that days will go to the WIC program. Also, we have as the community, when you come in, if you have a baby wipe or the baby diapers, and that's what they really need the most. And the lady was saying, if you have baby diapers, of course, if you're a small one, and that is fine. But what they would like to have is 5 months and above, and that's what they really need. And the other thing is, I have to thank you for our police departments. Thank you very much to have the program tomorrow. And I am one of it already signed up, and I'm looking forward to attend. And I think the citizens workshop is so good. And one thing is to let the communities know exactly what our policeman's job is, and a scope for the community to understand whenever there is an emergency situation come up. How do you react? And I hope all the kids, beside the adults, and the kids will have enough also training them to know, because as we know, adults with our life experience, certain maturity already developed. But for the kids, they don't know. Because what I think is, if something happened at that time, of course we want our kids to escape, run as fast as possible. But I was thinking, if somebody has any backpack or hot stuff, just throw it at a gunner. Probably could stop something, and or some teacher at that moment be able to do something. But that is something just in my mind, and I have that questions, and I'm looking forward tomorrow for the police to teach me a little bit more concerning this issue, because I live close to school, 3 schools around that area, and I hope it will never happen to our society, our community. But if it happens, I will be there, not panicking, and be able to help. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Wynn. Is there anyone else? Okay, I will close public comment at 8:07. All right, so there isn't any...
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to take this opportunity to move that we accept the consent agenda for tonight.
Okay. So...
No, just the agenda, not the approval of the agenda was done, not the consent agenda. We moved right.
I made a motion to approve the consent agenda with the late materials, and it was voted on.
Oh, okay. I missed it. Oh, I know why. Because there was another late piece of information.
We included it in the consent agenda.
No, the trucks, food truck.
Okay.
We have that piece of paper here. Not Nathan's thing, but this about the food trucks. We can't just accept it because there's a change in funding.
So what is your question?
Heidi Signs has asked us to look into our fees for...
Wouldn't this be covered under new business?
I
That's actually just a community comment item tonight. That's just an FYI for you all from
Okay.
Heidi.
She's not asking for action?
Well, I'm sure she would like action, but at this point, that's just a community comment for you.
Okay.
It's not even a first reading. It's just
Yeah.
All right, so given that, we do not have any unfinished business at this point or any news scheduled. We have information items. Are there any questions or concerns regarding the informational items? Okay, if not, anything for the good of the order?
Actually, there was something I totally forgot, and I don't know if this might be out of order. I forgot to ask about, now that we have a full council and we have a utilities, I was wondering if someone would kind of get the ball rolling on a utilities meeting to talk about the recycling.
We're working on it, yes.
Okay.
Actually, Carl put that out today for those of us who are sitting on that committee. Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's already in the process. Yeah, thank you for asking. Okay, nothing for the good of the order?
I have a question for Aaron.
Yes?
Aaron, since we got this letter on the food truck thing, can we get that on the agenda with some information on, I guess, the history of our food truck licensing? I'd like to know some figures on business licensing. And when was she expecting an answer on this?
Well, she dropped it off today, so I met with her, I think, yesterday or the day before and kind of walked her through the different classes of food truck licensing, and that was her response, was to essentially say, gee, could you do it for less money? And so it really does come down to a council policy decision. You know, for her, she's also intending to serve the tap room, so in order to go to the tap room, she'll have to utilize our newest category, the $200 license. But to go beyond the tap room and just park out for the world is the $1,000 license. I told her that if she went with the 1,000, she wouldn't also have to buy the 200. She'd have the gold card, you know. She could go anywhere with that. But timing, I think, is her issue, and this is just not something that happens quickly. You know, this would be an ordinance. It would be a change to the code. You know, you're looking at the 2 reading rule unless there's some emergency, and it really comes down to the policy question of the council. You know, are you wanting to reopen this particular policy discussion, which was most recently opened for the food truck serving a tap room type concept, maybe 6 months ago?
So is she licensed to serve at the tap room currently?
Not yet.
Did we address the fact that she's operated without a license in?
She's aware that she needs to come pay the $200 to be able to serve at the tap room.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, just real quickly, there are 4 classes. For $35, you can go to private property such as Janicki Industries and serve their employees with their permission. You can also drive around town and move from block to block for no more than 10 minutes at a time and not block parking places or any ADA accessibility. So that's your ice cream truck, your food truck serving on private property. For $200, you can go to a place like a tap room that provides you and your customers with restrooms and seating facilities. And that's $200 per location that you intend to serve. For $1,000, you can do all of the above, plus you can set up on private property and just serve the public at large. And that's really what she wants to be able to do. The fourth class would be all of our special event vendors who we let get licensed under a master license.
So does she currently have a business license or anything with the city?
Yeah, I believe she's at the $35 pledge level. Okay. And she's going to move up to the $200, but for the $1,000, we told her we'd get her a gold pin.
So I guess my issue with this is that I want the council to think about is if she paid at the $35 level and then violated that license by serving at the tap room, or she violated city ordinance already by serving before the license. So at some point there was a violation. So now she's asking us for a 30-day trial period to test out our ordinance. I guess I don't I'm confused. If there's already been a violation and now she's asking for forgiveness and a free 30-day pass.
Yeah, well, you can't give, I guess the way I would encourage you to look at it is don't look at her request for her truck, but look at the policy more broadly, and that's really what you would do, and then, we'll execute that for you over in the executive branch. But the question is, going back to the whole basis of this, the concept was establish a license fee that would be some sort of a surrogate for property taxation, because there was a concern at the time when this was first established that mobile vendors would show up and skim the cream and not pay any taxes. So I think that really is where the conversation begins. That's how our policy was built, and the question for the council is, do you want to more openly embrace food trucks? And so far the answer has been yes. Let's develop this $200 structure for folks who are going to go to the tap room and really anything like that. I mean, it's not just the tap room. The question I think she's posing is, boy, that $1,000 still seems high. Don't you want to embrace it even more? I don't really want to pay that much and not know that it's going to work. That's the policy question, and if you kind of take her out of it and just look at the big picture, that's where the council, I believe, ought to live. So there's several courses of action. If you think you know what you want to do, I could bring you back an ordinance. You could refer it to a committee for further study and a possible recommendation, or you can do nothing.
Was the ordinance violation addressed?
She hasn't. If you read it, she's already paying the $250 to be at the tap room.
No, she's not.
Oh, no. Yes, she is. I already paid $250 per year to park at Local 20 tap room. It's right there.
She intends to, is what she means. She has not actually paid the city that, but she knows that she needs to, and she has told us she will.
So she has
paid the $35. I see.
So she has violated the city ordinance, and has that been addressed? I guess this branch of government would like to know what the other branch of government has done to address the violation.
We've informed her that she needs to pay the $200 fee.
Okay, and is it documented that she had a violation, or what's?
Well, I actually don't know if she's been to the tap room.
She served at the tap room.
Okay, well, so I didn't ask her if she'd been there. She told us that was her intent. So the way we would approach this, though, just so you're clear, is we will always start with the education element, and that's where she's at. That's, hey, if you want to go serve at the tap room, you need a specialty license. It costs $200, so come take care of that. And only if we don't get compliance with that ask do we move to the next level, which is, gee, you actually are breaking the law by not having the license you need. But we will always start with that ask. So she's at phase one, which is education and the request. She's said all the right things to us, which is, I'll pay for it. And what we said to her, was that yesterday or the day before? She wasn't sure if she wanted to buy the $1,000 license or the $200 license. And I said to her, don't buy the $200 one today if you think you're going to buy the $1,000 license, because our code doesn't actually clearly say that you would only pay $800 later. So if you know you want the $1,000, then wait, pay us the $1,000, because if you pay $200 today, it might not be super simple for us to only charge you $800 tomorrow, and we just wanted to sort that out. So I guess my expectation is that she would not be selling at the tap room without getting the license resolved from yesterday or the day before. But maybe she set up there tonight. I don't know.
So I have a question. Who actually monitors that? Can any truck just pull up and serve? Is there some way of monitoring who actually has the correct license and who does not?
Well, so business licenses happen all through the BLS website. So people are supposed to, self-file, and those all go to Cheryl, who then shares business license applications with various departments to make sure that what folks have applied for would be correctly categorized and would be legally authorized. Somebody who simply wheels into town with no license is first an education issue, and secondarily it's a misdemeanor offense. And so then we pull people off a trail road and send them over to the tap room and tell them to go knock on the door and ask them to address that.
So the businesses that are using the trucks, they're not required at all to make sure that the trucks that are pulling up are.
No, we don't obligate the host, if you will, to ensure that the food truck has done everything it needs to do. My understanding is the food truck's independently permitted both for business licensing and health permitting, and it'd probably be a good practice for them to ask, do you have insurance? Do you have a health permit? But we, the city, do not obligate the host to do that work.
So do we give them any kind of a plaque or a sticker that they can put in their window? Or
they have a business license endorsement on their state business license.
But it doesn't state what, if they've bought the 35 or the 200 or the 1,000?
Yeah, it does show up as a specialty license, as I understand it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would show that they are licensed under our specialty license for that.
Okay.
And we require of all businesses a separate license for each location. So that's not anything new. What's different here is it's just a larger dollar amount. I think the only other specialty license would be our alcohol selling establishments, which are at the $250 level, if I recall correctly. Oh, do pawn shops pay more? I think they have different applications.
Okay. I was just curious as to who was monitoring that, keeping tabs on it.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Berg. So last time I recall this discussion is when the Local 20 tap room was in here, and they were talking about what they were looking for a business model. And it was a pretty robust conversation. I wasn't serving on the council at the time, but my question is, what is the quantity of these requests since Local 20 came in and asked? Is this happening once a week, once a month? How many people have asked for or questioned the food truck license fee structure?
I've had one the one that you have before you. Do you have any idea how many people have paid the $200 fee? And Sushi by Chen, probably.
So yeah. 2 at the $200 level, 1 at the $1,000 in the past 6 months. Is that correct?
Yeah, except nobody's actually got the $1,000 license.
Or has inquired.
I'm not aware of any other inquiries.
So it'd be fair to characterize there isn't a mass movement of food trucks to...
I think that's true. I would also say that our reputation is that we're not super food truck friendly.
Yeah, with $1,000.
Also thinking about the supply and demand curve that we learned in Econ 201. So thank you for that.
All right, if there's no further discussion, I would move for an adjournment.
Move that we adjourn.
All right. Second? We're adjourned.